happen in Israel that so many people will have so much interest and come to such an evening. I can't prevent a remark that I didn't plan to say to what Douglas had just said. To stand here today, 8 months after this war started, and to talk only about the Jewish victims, totally ignoring 38,000 people who were killed in those 8 months, totally ignoring the starvation, the destruction, the tens of thousands of children which were killed, tells the whole story. After this, you almost don't need to continue, because when you don't see the other, when you're victimizing yourself and totally ignore the other suffer, the other agony, then really we have no basis here. Now I want to get back to my... I couldn't help it, sorry. I will start with a personal note. If not Zionism, I wouldn't have been here tonight. My father said goodbye, my late father said goodbye to his parents and fiancée in the railway station of Prague in 1939. He went on a boat, illegal boat, 5 months in the sea. No port would accept them, detention in Beirut, Lebanon, and finally illegally arriving in Israel. He had no idea about Zionism. He hardly knew Judaism. He never knew the difference between Purim and Pesach until his last day. I always had to explain him, when Purim you eat matzot. No, it's Pesach when you eat matzot. But he came here to Israel, and Zionism saved him. Zionism at its beginning was a just cause which was performed with many, many mistakes and even crimes. But the idea that the Jews deserve a rescue place was the most moral idea that I could have thought at those days. But years passed by. Zionism, which nobody today in Israel knows to define exactly. Many Israelis will tell you that to help an old lady to cross the road, even if she doesn't want to cross the road, that's Zionism. But Zionism today is the scaffold, that's a word that I wrote myself and I will never know to pronounce it, the scaffolding of a building which was built already. And once you built it, you don't need it anymore. Zionism today has only one meaning, and nobody can find any other meaning. It is Jewish supremacy between the river and the sea. That's the real meaning of Zionism today. I was a good boy in Tel Aviv for many years. I got Zionism with the milk of my mother. You mentioned all my sins. Yes, I was in the army. I was working for Shimon Peres. I was a Zionist until I realized that Zionism means national supremacy of one people over the other. And I cannot support any kind of supremacy anywhere. Yes, it was a nice lie to tell that a people without a land arrived to a land without a people. And we were brought up according to those stories. I heard the word Nakba first time in my life when I was 20. I saw the ruins along the street and around the roads in Israel. I never asked, where are the people who lived in those ruins? What happened to them? We had no interest for this. But you get adult, and I started to cover the occupation. It's now 40 years that I'm covering the occupation, and I cannot accept Jewish supremacy. But that's my problem. It's not necessarily your problem. What must be really understood is that Zionism, as my friend Meadi just mentioned, is an ideology. You might support it, you might not support it. Israel, the Jewish people had defined themselves already. We have a strong regional superpower, and we live in a state which is more Jewish than democratic, and the struggle should be between the two, and this struggle is still ahead of us. But Zionism finished its role many years ago. It is meaningless today, but still people might believe in it. That's fine with me. My request from you tonight is, Don't fall to the trap of the Israeli propaganda. The strategy of Israel in recent years is efficient and successful, and you shouldn't fall to the trap because it's finally also your problem. Not any criticism of Israel is anti-Semitism. Not every policeman who writes a ticket to a Jewish driver is an anti-Semite. You may be anti-Israeli in the way that you are anti-occupation, anti-apartheid, and still have nothing to do with anti-Semitism. I'll tell you more than this. Israel has succeeded by this to silence any criticism. And take my word, there is nothing that Israel needs now more than criticism, because Israel will never save itself by its own. Israel will never put an end to the occupation without you, without the criticism of the world. Thank you very much.
All right, everyone. So that was a powerful statement by Gideon Levy. I'm going to go ahead and continue the video in a little bit. I just wanted to say that this video right now, it's a debate by Munk Debate, is being banned on YouTube everywhere because of copyright issues. I'm adding commentary to this debate, so hopefully YouTube does not take it down. This is for your convenience. Please like this video, subscribe to this channel, and let's get right back to it. Thank you.
I feel overdose of propaganda, and it really neutralized me in a way, but I'll try to manage just on a factual ground, because you were all kind enough to applaud to what Douglas said, that if only Hamas will release the hostages, the war will come to its end. From time to time, it's also good to stick to facts. And the fact is that Israel wants to continue this war with the hostages or without them.
This is actually true. Israel has come out and said explicitly that they are not going to cease fire even if they receive the hostages.
And Israel is not ready to get a deal because Israel does not want to end this war. So with all the respect, things must be more accurate than this. But I would like to speak about something which is more principled. One of the big fears that we are being taught day and night is that they all want to exterminate Israel. That if you call from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, it means to send all the Jews back to Auschwitz. It is a fight over the regime between the river and the sea. Nobody who opposed apartheid in South Africa spoke about exterminating South Africa. We were speaking, or they were speaking, about changing the regime. Between the river and the sea, today there are two peoples living together under the same rule, half and half by size. There's only one thing lacking there, and this is equality. This small value which democracy cannot exist without it. And when there is no democracy, it looks like apartheid, it behaves like apartheid, and it is apartheid. Zionism stands behind it, and in order to create this new regime that we all should have been in favor of a real democracy between the river and the sea, Israel has to give up one of two, either being a Jewish state or being a democratic state. As long as there are two peoples, it cannot be Jewish. As long as there is Jewish supremacy, it cannot be democratic. So it's all about changing the regime. And yes, between the river and the sea, I would love to see one day equality. And this is the meaning of releasing Palestine. And it has nothing to do, not with the Holocaust, not with Auschwitz, and not with many other things. Right now, our cause, and it should be the world's cause, is to changing the regime into a democracy. What is wrong in this? What is wrong in wishing for an equal society? 35.
Okay, so these right now, these are the best moments of Gideon Levy in this debate, and there's a few more. What I wanted to say is that this debate actually was going viral because of Mehdi Hassan. He has some excellent moments in this debate. And Gideon Levy is actually on his team on this debate. And he said some great points as well. Unfortunately, in my opinion, I think Gideon Levy, because English is obviously his second language, he wasn't able to clarify or use that tonality as good as he can just because it's in his second language. At the end of the day, a big part of debate is tonality, is how you say the things you say. And I mean, if he wasn't handicapped by that, I think he would have been much better and perhaps they would have won this debate. Now, let's get back to it.
5 years, I'm covering the Israeli occupation. There's not a single week that I don't go to Gaza or to the West Bank. Unfortunately, the last 17 years, I can't go to Gaza because the Israeli government does not let any Israeli journalist into Gaza. But I've seen a little bit of the Israeli occupation. Not as much as Natasha and Douglas saw, but still I saw something. To speak today about autonomy in the West Bank, really it insults propaganda. It insults any human being who just knows the reality on the ground. Autonomy in the West Bank, I mean, did you ever hear a worse joke than this? Do you know what does it mean to live under the Israeli occupation? Do you know what does it mean to wake up in the morning or to go to sleep at night with troops coming into your home, with kidnapped children, women? I don't have to get into it because you in Canada see much more than we in Israel because we are protected by our media who doesn't show us anything. I just want to say to Douglas, I'm very proud to be a single voice. You know why? Because masses in history made the biggest mistakes. From when is it a criteria if you gain a majority? I'm not a politician. You want to look like masses in history who went blindly after horrible ideologies and horrible leaders? Do you need examples from this? And those few dissidents, they are the heroes.
Obviously, he's referring to World War II and a funny guy with a mustache. Sorry, a guy with a funny mustache.
Heroes of today, not me. But those dissidents are the heroes that we admire and should admire. So from when is the fact that I am lonely as a guarantee for anything? You can go with the masses, have a nice time with the masses. I don't want to be with them. But we are running away from the subject. And the subject is still the capability to criticize Zionism. And what is unacceptable is that Zionism will be above any suspicion, any question, any remark, or any criticism. There is no ideology like this in the world. Yes, in Soviet Russia, if you were not a communist, you couldn't stay there. I don't want to live in a country in which if I'm not a Zionist, and that's the situation today, I can live there. But you are out of the, you are a traitor. Where, when, and where is there a place where if you don't support a certain ideology, by the end of the day, it is an ideology. Why can't you criticize it?
Thank you.
Why? Why can't you have some questions about it?
We appreciate it. We'll give you a round of applause.
You know, Gideon made an excellent point there because at the end of the day, this debate, the topic of this debate is anti-Zionism the same as anti-Semitism? And it's obviously not. One thing, anti-Semitism is you're going against something that someone is born with. You're born a Semite. If someone is discriminating against you for that, that's racist in a way, right? Whereas anti-Zionism, Zionism is an idea. You should be able to criticize it. So these two ways, obviously, anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism is not the same. But the problem is the other team keeps changing the goalposts. They're going to different topics and making it all emotional. And they're totally disregarding the actual topic of this debate. Kind of pissed me off in this.
I will be one of them, obviously.
Of course. You're Hamas too, Gideon, don't forget.
I want to a little bit calm down and speak for a moment about anti-Semitism. Where were the anti-Semites and the campuses when Israel went for peace in the Oslo years? How come that the world hugged Israel then? From coast to coast, from continent to continent, campuses and others hugged Israel because Israel went for peace. Now, when we look backwards, obviously we see it was a kind of a trap, but let's put it aside. Where was anti-Semitism then? What, anti-Semitism went to sleep when Israel is doing the right thing? Anti-Semitism goes to sleep when Israel is following the international law. Anti-Semitism goes to sleep when Israel is following the resolutions of all the international institutions. It just wakes up if Israel doesn't. So if so, let's ask ourselves, what is the contribution of Israel's policy to the increase of anti-Semitism in the world? There is anti-Semitism in the world. It should be fought without any compromises, no doubt about this. But the manipulation of Israel to label any criticism as anti-Semitism makes a damage to the fight against anti-Semitism. Because the genuine anti-Semitism we should fight. But the critics of Israel, part of them are anti-Semites, part of them are using what's happening to express anti-Semitism. And part of them, let me tell you, a big part of them, are people of conscience, are people that not only have the right to criticize Israel, they have the duty to do so. I don't know what, they shouldn't have been killed in any case. If they dreamed about peace or didn't dream about peace, they shouldn't have been killed, no doubt about this. But to put Israel today as a peace-loving country, really, something must have some borders. I mean, where shall we stop? We can say everything about Israel and believe everything about Israel. When Israel, you just mentioned the two-state solution. Wonderful solution. Why are there 700,000 settlers there if you want to give it back? Why did you put 700 settlers? Out of peace. And I want to tell you one more thing. Each of you, I don't know you, unfortunately, maybe I'll get to know you tonight. I can get your mood. Each of you, ask yourself, if you would have been born Palestinian and live all your life under the brutal, maybe the most brutal regime today in the world. I saw it. When you would wake up in the morning and see your parents beaten and go to sleep at night and troops will come to your home and kidnap your father or your mother in front of your eyes on a daily basis, and I know what I'm talking about. Don't tell me about facts, yeah? What do you think you would have felt toward the people who does it to you? What do you think? It has nothing to do with education system. They don't.
All right, so we noticed that the audience was booing him. Obviously, the audience is very pro-Zionist. My problem with Gideon is that, in a way, I felt like he was holding Mehdi Hassan back. Even though Gideon, I mean, he has a great heart. His heart's in the right place, and he's actually one of the few that is Israeli, lives in Israel, and is anti-Zionist. Brave man, brave man. The problem is, though, in these arguments, he's being very emotional. And I think he should have thrown in more facts. He's been a reporter for like decades, 30, 40 years. He knows the facts. He should be saying those. And I assume he's not as quick with his tongue just because it's his second language. That's what I think. And also, it's funny that the crowd is booing, even though he has probably been to Gaza more than everyone else in the crowd. Guaranteed. So the crowd is just booing without actually knowing anything, which is insane.
Need education system to hate us. Okay, we make them hating us.
Go first.
Very
Take us away with
unfortunate.
your closing statement.
I would love to have the last word, but I never get it. That's fine. I guess I don't deserve it. I would like really in a different tone now, because we are concluding soon. I'm the only one here who lives in Israel, who was born in Israel, who raises his children in Israel, who never had a slightest idea of leaving Israel, who will never leave Israel as long as I will not be forced to leave Israel. All my life I live in Israel. Part of my life I was a Zionist. Part of my life I was struggling, because it's not very easy to get released from something that you get from childhood in quantities that I can't even explain you how much propaganda goes to our veins and how much blindness goes to our veins toward other side of Israel. And Israel has so many good sides. Don't tell me about them. I know very well, and I know to appreciate it very well. And in many things, I have very hard time to live in Israel, to be an Israeli. Many times I'm deeply ashamed of being an Israeli, more and more so. Few times I feel proud of being Israeli, less and less so. And gradually, after covering the occupation for decades now, after covering the crimes which were never denied by no one, none of my stories was ever denied, but everyone can say whatever he wants. After so many years, I realized that the only way to get out of this deadlock, and nobody can deny here that Israel is right now in its worst position ever, a pariah state par excellence. You may blame the whole world for it, but maybe we Israelis should also look upon ourselves and ask, maybe we did something wrong. Can it be that we didn't do any mistakes, any crimes, and the whole world is anti-Semitic? The Supreme Court of this kind and the Supreme Court of this kind, this forum and this forum, intellectuals, artists, everyone. Can it be that all are anti-Semites and only we are pure and just forever? So we have to look with some kind of decency at the mirror and ask ourselves, but that's really our problem as Israelis. Most of the Israelis are still convinced, according to the propaganda lines that we heard here today, are not ready to take any criticism and become very, very aggressive if you dare to criticize them. From time to time, I dare to suggest to my fellow Israelis, maybe the Israeli IDF, the Israeli army, is not the most moral army in the world, but the second moral army in the world. You know, after 40,000 victims in 8 months, maybe they are the second after the army of Luxembourg. They become offensive. How dare you say so? So really, because time is running out, the only thing which is today to be decided in this respectable forum is, do we have the right to criticize Israel without being criminalized, without being silenced, without being labeled as anti-Semites? And believe me, for the benefit of Israel, we better stand in front of the challenges, the criticism of genuine friends, instead of trying to silence them. Because this propaganda campaign of silencing any critic will, by the end of the day, be the best source for new anti-Semitism. Thank you for coming. This couldn't have happened.
Okay, there you have it. These are the biggest moments of Gideon Levy in the Munk debate of, is anti-Semitism the same as anti-Zionism? Now, if you want to watch the whole debate, I do have the whole debate with commentary. Hopefully YouTube does not take it down. You can watch it right here. All right, see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Make sure you like and subscribe.